So suddenly Target saw that as a great opportunity to show that they were good people. My favorite one of these cause-related marketing was about a year ago. There was a company that sold tampons. And they had an, I don't know if you remember them, paid attention like I do, this is my world. They, not to tampon ads. I do have 2 teenage daughters, so maybe. Dad! And what they said is every time you bought a box of tampons from them, or whatever their brand was, I think it was Always, they would give a certain amount of money to girls in Africa who can't afford tampons. And their tagline was, have a happy period.
Okay.
So, you better understand their business well enough to understand that when you meet with them, you can understand that you're going to talk about how what you want from them, your partnership with them, is going to increase their bottom line, which means you better know their business backwards and forwards. At Chrysalis, I partnered millions and millions with the local real estate community. Okay? And the reason I did is because they wanted the city to love them. Okay? They wanted, why? Because developers want variances. Do you know what variances are? Developers want the government to vote to say that, you know what? The law says you can only build 3 stories high, we'll let you build your mall 3.5 stories high. Right? For that, they need government vote. And therefore, when I could say to them, well, I have relationships with government folks and they think what we're doing is great, so therefore when you go in, I will stand up and talk about what great guys you are. And I can't tell you the number of times that I went to city council meetings and testified on behalf of developers. I was running a homeless agency. Homeless agency, right? People were on the street, and I was testifying in front of city council on behalf of developers, right? But the answer was they were hiring 1,000 homeless people a year to get them off the street. I loved testifying on behalf of developers. And I never said these are great people, I never said their project is great. I stood up and I said, I just want you to know how this developer is partners with the local community. That's all. No opinion. I'm here to tell you that these guys, here's what they do with my organization, here's how they partner with the community. Okay? But controversial. Very controversial. I mean, if anybody doesn't think it's controversial, then talk to Scope. Because they'll tell you how they wouldn't talk to me for years because I was doing that. I wasn't the best friend of the homeless advocates downtown because the developers were the enemy. They weren't my enemy. They were, as far as I knew, putting thousands of homeless people to work. I don't know that I have more cool stories, Ken. I have a cool story. I met Kent one day. And with Found Animals Foundation, which is a phenomenal organization represented here. And I went to Kent and I said, we have a legal problem that we can't figure out there. And did we ever figure it out, Kent?
No.
No. So we just let them do whatever they wanted to do. That's all. You know, the good news is do anybody know how many nonprofits there are in LA? 31,000. Right. So the question is, and just to paraphrase, is there a way that we can quantify the social return? Right? So I go crazy over this, and for one reason only. So this concept of how do we measure, this was the first thing that happened with social enterprise. It was the first thing that the eBay guys wanted to talk about. Okay, that the people, the ex-investment bankers wanted to talk about was, so they came up with all these models. One was called SROI, the social return on investment. One was called BACO. There's one called, I don't know if you've all seen this book by this woman from Acumen Fund that's out, The Blue Sweater. They developed a model called BACO. It's the best alternative charitable option to show that there was a return. there are ways to calculate the return to an organization, to the government, to society, of taking a person and putting them into a job. So for me, it was easy. And they actually came to me all the time and said, can you measure it? Just as a cute story. I said no to them. And they measured it on their own, my business. And they said, okay, so the business is worth $11 million, and the social return on investment is another $12 million. Your company, your nonprofit company, is worth $23 million. And on the phone, I had one word for them: sold. You have somebody who's willing to pay me $11 million for a business that loses $400,000 a year. Sold. My problem with social return on investment, this is personal, is I've never figured out how to calculate a social return on investment to a food kitchen. And what I said to them was, as soon as you can calculate a social return on investment to a food kitchen, to Union Rescue Mission, then I'll do it with you. But the truth is that if it wasn't for the soup kitchen, my guys would be dead way before they got to us.
That's what I'm trying to allude to, because I think we are trying to really understanding the real value is. If you talk about human beings, the value of human beings is invaluable. Right?
Well, there you go, just what you said. It's invaluable.
Yeah, but this has to be, I think, quantified, because it will help also to make the government aware, that there needs to be more focus on this particular area in society.
Yeah, I think it's, so I'll just recommend an article to you written by Malcolm Gladwell for the New Yorker 2 years ago called $1 Million Murray, where he did that. He figured out that a guy named Murray, who was living on the streets of Las Vegas, was costing the government $1 million because of ambulance and hospital and police and fire department and everything. Two things. So his answer, Gladwell's answer was, well, if you take him and put him in an apartment, then it's a much better alternative for you. Two problems. First of all, that $1 million didn't go into homelessness. It went back to the fire department, the police department, and all of that. It didn't actually go to help homeless people. The second is that now that Murray wasn't on the street passing out in front of the casinos and bothering people, he was now in an apartment. He died a month later alone. But that's not in Gladwell's article. Sorry. You can tell this is a very personal issue.
In my experience, the reason that a lot of nonprofits fail in social enterprise is they don't put business people in lead positions. They try to run the business with the same mindset that they run their nonprofit. Can you talk about that?
Sure. The question is, for those people who can hear it, is that the reason a lot of nonprofits fail in running businesses is that they don't put business people in charge. When I ran the agency, recruiting the person who would run those businesses and do a good job was the single hardest thing I did in all the years I was in nonprofit. First of all, I'm asking somebody to run a major business. That is a business that competes with the private sector, that has every problem that business has, but more, because they were hiring people who were unemployable. And then I'll pay them $75,000. Even if I paid them $110,000, was remarkably hard. So I had a lot of people who came in and treated it like a retirement job. I'm retired, I'm looking for something to do. The answer was, it was a bigger job than they had before they retired. But yes, absolutely, a business person has to be in charge of the business, but a mission-based business person who understands that they have to put mission above the business, or a program director who will go to bat every day against the business person on behalf of the clients. But yeah, I mean, it's like I said, you have to run it like a business, which means if you hire people who are social workers, which is why I moved to a business school. Because if you hire social workers tend to not be the most fantastic business people.